All right, let's get right into it. Today, we are talking about why so much of our self-improvement effort feels like we're just spinning our wheels. We're going to break down the two fundamental ways you can upgrade your mind, and you'll see why one of them is a total game changer. So, does this sound familiar? You're reading all the right books, you're listening to the podcasts, you are absorbing all this new information, but deep down, you still feel kind of stuck. Like you're running in place. It's an incredibly common feeling, and it turns out there's a really clear reason why it happens. The absolute best way to get this is to think of your mind as a computer, okay? There are really only two ways you can upgrade it. You can add new software, new apps, new skills. Or you can upgrade the entire operating system, the very foundation of how your mind processes reality. The problem is most of us just keep piling new apps onto a buggy, outdated OS. So these two upgrades, they operate on completely different levels. We're going to call them horizontal and vertical development. And trust me, just understanding this difference is the first and honestly the most important step towards making a real lasting change. Okay, so first up, we've got horizontal development. This is the stuff we all know and do. It's learning to code, picking up a new language, reading another nonfiction book. You're basically adding new data and new skills, new apps to the mind you already have. Now, this makes you more capable for sure, but it doesn't change the underlying logic of how you think. You're just running better software on the same old hardware. And then there's vertical development. And this is the big one. This isn't about adding more stuff. It's about transforming the whole container. This is a fundamental upgrade to your mental OS. It is a change in how you see the world, how you deal with complexity, and even how you build your own identity. It's way rarer and a whole lot more powerful. So let's first take a look at upgrading your apps. These are the techniques for optimizing your day-to-day mental states. You can think of them as quick software patches that help you get the most out of whatever OS you're currently running. So, what's a state of mind? Well, it's kind of like the weather inside your head. It's temporary. It's just how you feel in this very moment. Are you focused? Are you anxious? Calm? Or maybe you're in that incredible peak performance state we call flow. These states are so important because a brilliant mind is pretty useless if it's always lost in a fog of anxiety or distraction. And here's the cool part. We can actually trigger peak states like flow whenever we want. It is not about luck. It's a formula. You need intense, complete focus. You need crystal clear goals, immediate feedback on how you're doing, and this is the key, a challenge that's just about 4% harder than your current skill level. That is the sweet spot, right between boredom and anxiety. Another really powerful app for your mind is the growth mindset from the work of Carol Dweck. It's such a simple mental reframe. Instead of thinking, I can't figure this out, you just add one tiny word at the end. I can't figure this out yet. That one little word completely changes everything. It keeps your brain's learning circuits open and turns what feels like a dead end into a runway for growth. And what about when you're in a negative state? Well, you can use this simple debugging tool from cognitive behavioral therapy. It goes like this. Something happens, that's A, the activating event. This triggers a belief you have, that's B. And that belief leads to C, the consequence, which is your feeling. The magic here is realizing we can't always control the event, A, but we absolutely have the power to challenge our belief, B, and that changes the entire emotional outcome. Okay, so those are the apps, super useful, but now we get to the main event, upgrading the entire operating system. This is not about managing your mood in the moment, it's about evolving the fundamental stage of your mind. So how does an upgrade like this even happen? Well, the core engine behind it is something called the subject-object shift. The easiest way to think about it is with a toddler. A toddler is subject to their emotions. They are their anger. An adult, on the other hand, can see their anger as an object. They can feel it, look at it, and decide what to do with it. That shift from being run by something to being able to look at it, that's the engine of all real growth. Now, it turns out most adults are running on an OS that developmental psychologist Robert Kegan calls the socialized mind. At this stage, your sense of self is literally merged with what other people think. Your boss, your family, your culture. You don't just have relationships. You are your relationships. Their approval isn't just a nice to have. It feels essential for your very survival. And you can really see the limits of this OS in a case study about a manager named Rick. So Rick's caught between what his team wants and what the board of directors demands. Because his operating system is socialized, He can't step outside of those conflicting voices to form his own opinion. He is subject to what they think. So he just tries to please everyone and, of course, ends up pleasing no one. He's like a ship with no captain. The next big upgrade is to the self-authoring mind, and this is a massive leap. This is where you develop your own internal compass, your own personal set of values. Now, you can hold other people's expectations as an object. You can look at them, you can evaluate them, and you can decide if they fit with your own internal code. You are no longer being written by your environment. You are finally starting to write your own life. And this is where the research gets absolutely fascinating. Studies show that a staggering 58% of the adult population is primarily operating from the socialized mind. Only about 35% have actually made that upgrade to a self-authoring OS. I mean, just let that sink in. The majority of adults are still fundamentally guided by what other people think of them. This table here basically lays out the whole journey. It's a great cheat sheet. You can see the progression so clearly. At the imperial stage, you're a slave to your own needs. Then, at the socialized stage, your relationships run the show. The big upgrade to self-authoring is when your own ideology becomes your guide. And then, at the highest self-transforming stage, even your own ideology becomes an object you can step back and look at. Each step gives you a more complex, more powerful view of reality. So, if this OS upgrade is so important, how in the world do we actually do it? How do we find the hidden bugs in our own mental code that are keeping us stuck where we are? Well, the biggest barrier is not what you think. It's not laziness. It's a hidden active defense system that Keegan calls our immunity to change. It is an unconscious system that is brilliantly designed to protect us from something we're afraid of. And in doing so, it actively stops us from making the very changes we say we want to make. And this 4-step map is how you find the bug. First, you state your goal, what you want to improve. Second, you get brutally honest about the things you do that sabotage that goal. Third, and this is the real magic, you dig for the hidden, competing commitment that's secretly driving those behaviors. And that will lead you right to step 4, the big assumption, the core, often unconscious, belief that's holding that entire protective system in place. That assumption is the bug in your operating system. Okay, so now we have the two main pieces of the puzzle, upgrading our apps, which are our states, and upgrading our OS, our fundamental stage. So how do they work together? How do we build a fully optimized system? Here it is. This is probably the single most important idea in this entire explainer. The two are completely connected. You use the horizontal tools, things like getting into flow, using the power of yet, debugging your negative thoughts. You use those to create the stability and the energy you need to do the really hard, sometimes uncomfortable work of vertical growth. Just think about it with the computer metaphor again. All the best, most amazing apps in the world are totally useless on a computer that crashes every 5 minutes, right? And at the same time, the most powerful operating system is pretty ineffective if you don't have any good software to run on it. You have to have both. You need to manage your daily states so you have the strength and clarity to evolve your long-term stage. So, I'll leave you with a question to really think about. In that one area of your life where you feel the most stuck, what is that deep, hidden, big assumption that's running your operating system right now? If you can find that, you've just found the key to your next big upgrade.